G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smissen's Photography. Well, the video production on this episode was a monumental failure. Just check this out. So, once again, I seem to have managed to have left this at home. Not much use having the dead kitten at the office when I'm out in the field with the microphone exposed to the wind. You'll also notice that I managed to get the GoPro mounted on the camera where I could still see the end of the lens. If I switched the lens over and I had the Pentax one, not a bad ad for Pentax, but not great for shooting video. And it was also so windy that my hair was blowing around in front of the GoPro lens. So, complete waste. But I did want to put a video together for this because it was the Creative Photography Challenge number 7, Serendipity. Now, of course, serendipity means luck, and luck wasn't with me for the video, but it was with me for shooting a few landscapes. What I was trying to do in this case was to demonstrate shooting landscapes from a moving boat when you have no control over where you're going to go and you're really just taking whatever you can see. So serendipity comes into it quite a bit. It was a sunset cruise on the Queenscliff to Searoad Ferry, and that ferry runs as a commuter ferry during the day, but a couple of times a year in summer they run sunset cruises where they take an extra 2 hours to cruise around the bay and try and show off the best views of sunset over Point Nepean or Point Lonsdale. We got some pretty good views over Point Nepean, but because you're on a moving boat, you have absolutely no control over where you're going to be, the angles that you can shoot at to try and line up some interesting things in the foreground, midground and background. And in fact, foreground is really hard anyway because mostly you've just got the open bay. We also have the serendipity of what's going to go on with the sunset. So let's have a look at 5 images that I took while we were on the cruise. The first consideration that I had to take care of was camera movement. Obviously on a moving boat, it's very difficult to keep the camera still, so I had to shoot at a relatively high shutter speed. So I was shooting at mostly over 1,000th of a second, except for the last shot, and I'll talk a bit about that when we get to it. But all the other shots were shot at faster than 1,000th of a second. So as the evening went on, I had to keep bumping the ISO up in order to make sure that I kept the shutter speed fast enough, while still allowing myself an aperture that would allow me the best depth of field that was possible. So let's have a look at these shots. This first one took a little bit of waiting and a little bit of luck. I was trying to get the sun in this gap between the clouds here, but that never eventuated. But what I did manage to get, just as the boat was turning and cruising past Point Nepean here, was this sun caught behind the dark cloud. And because it's backlit, the cloud looks even darker, but it also creates these great little sun rays and this golden light on the horizon cloud here. And speaking of golden light, when you look directly into the sun, because the sun's very low in the sky, it gave this golden reflection off the rippled water. And with the wake of the boat, these repetitive waves going diagonally off into the distance made quite a nice abstract shot. And what grabbed me with this third shot was the blues and the yellows. Complementary colours make really nice landscape shots if you can get them. And the sun peeking through the hazy cloud here turned a golden yellow, but still allowed this sky up the top here with just this little bit of haze to stay a deep blue and get these sun rays in it. And I also like the reflections on the water here, the fast shutter speed maintaining the texture in there, but the golden reflection of the sun, and then the lights and the shadows of the trees here giving me this nice banded pattern in the water. I've been trying to get this shot for years, travelling across on the ferry, but except in the middle of winter, the ferry really doesn't run too much in the evening and the morning when the sun is very low. So I'd had this shot in my head for a long time, with the quarantine station on Point Nepean backlit by the sun, and the golden orange sunlight here right on sunset, reflecting off the edges of the chimney and the buildings here and creating this glowy haze over the hills, was exactly what I was looking for. It would have been really nice if I'd got it 5 or 10 minutes earlier and got a little bit of light on the sea in the foreground, but you can't have everything. And this fifth image is one that I've been trying to shoot for a long time as well. There are 2 lighthouses in Queenscliff, the black lighthouse, this one, and the white lighthouse, which is a few hundred metres to the left. The black lighthouse sits inside Fort Queenscliff, so you need to go on a guided tour of the fort to get a photograph of it, but then all you're doing is shooting straight up at it from in front of it here, because otherwise it's hidden by buildings. So the only really good shot that you can get of it is from out at sea. And without hiring a boat, this was a really good opportunity for me on this ferry cruise to be able to get a shot of it. But as you can tell by the graininess of this and the lack of contrast, it's really late in the evening. The purple haze is the last little bit of light about half an hour or more after sunset, and so I had to bump the ISO right up to get this, but I've managed to cut most of the grain out of it and I'm quite happy with this shot. So I hope you've enjoyed this brief video. If you do, subscribe, like, tell your friends, and remember, pixels are free, so get out there and shoot more. Bye.